Hey, bonjour.
Yes.
Ça va bien?
Come on in.
How are you doing?
Good, you?
I'm very good. Nice to meet you, Assisi. I love it. This is awesome. Woo! Took a while to get here. Nice, great, awesome.
So, is it a long ride from Saint-Cloud?
A little bit.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. So this one is called Space to Create.
Yes.
Okay, so in the photograph, it's basically a shot of the of the space we're in right now, as if the photographer was standing just beyond the table where we are, and is photographing the studio that's empty. And so there's a table, there's a cup of tea or coffee on the table, there's another smaller table, there's Rachel's mannequins, there's the windows out onto the Prince Edward area. And yeah, so why would you include this photograph when you curated your set?
Because this was part of my every week life since the beginning of 2021, and I'm so grateful for it. And I think when we create, we have to always remind ourselves of all of the people that we're grateful for. And I think this is this picture is an entry point for me to talk about that. And this shot was taken the first day I came to the studio after Rachel and I arranged for me to be the artist in residence.
Nice.
So it was the first time I came to the studio alone. I had the keys that Rachel gave me.
Nice.
And I just felt so happy and so calm and grateful. I'm actually tearing up
That's
talking about this.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it was like a gift from heaven, but
For sure.
heaven equals Rachel. So 2020 was when I said I was going to finish my first draft
Okay.
of the book that I was writing,
Okay.
that I am writing. And 2020 was what it was, right?
Yeah.
It threw some unexpected things at us, and my original plan was to write at the library because at home it's difficult with, so at the time I had a 1-year-old. Actually in this picture, yeah, so he's 1 year old. But at the beginning of 2020, he wasn't even 1 year old yet. So I was trying to go back into my story, write while having a 9-month-old. And it was a lot to juggle. And then 2020 came. Of course, you had to deal with, buying all of the hygiene stuff, and etc.
Yeah.
Dealing with this new
And where we
state.
are, it being, this is not a quiet space outside of the building.
No, yeah. And then the library's closed.
Right.
Right? And I was like, so where am I going to write? And I do have a little desk space in my home, but when I'm hearing my son, it's really hard to dive into, the themes of intergenerational trauma. Right? So I did what I could. I went to cafes sometimes, but I'm the type of person who really needs silence in order to create. So it was tough. But I remember during that year that Rachel, at some point I was telling her, because I knew that she's an artist, and I was like, I'm really struggling with the process of creating, because I was from a legal background and I was used to having deadlines, pushing to get to the deadline because, deadlines are prescribed by law. You have to get to it. And here I was, I think, putting in that same energy and mindset into my first draft, and it was totally not working. Right? Because the more I put pressure, the more somehow my creative brain was like, nope, going off for a walk, I'm not doing this. Right? And so I was struggling through just the creative process and the self-doubts as well.
Sure.
Right? And so Rachel said, well, why don't you just tell me the story? What are you up to? And it was the first time I shared my story in detail with someone. And I was really nervous, right? I had kept it all to myself before because I think I had a fear of judgment. And I was seeing myself as this solo worker. And then I said, okay, no, I think I really need a second a second pair of ears. And she was amazing. She was amazing. She gave me wonderful feedback, told me about how certain things in the story was resonating with her. So that was great feedback because, I just tapped into something universal here.
Right.
Good, like, keep those. And then she would just give pointers. I'd like to hear more about this or more about that, or this part perhaps maybe not as central to your storyline or what you want to say. I still have, in my binder of notes, a note going, amazing meeting with Rachel. And I wrote down everything that she gave me. And so this was an insight into, wow, sometimes it takes, well, no, not sometimes, I'll take that out. It takes allies, and it even takes a village for a work of art to be created.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's a myth to sit alone at your desk, and toiling through with it. Having a second pair of eyes, ears is immensely helpful.
Sure.
And then it was a few months later that she proposed that I come here to write. And so again, an act of generosity on her part, right? And it changed everything for me. So in this year, I advanced the story so much more than in 2020 because of this space that was conducive to creativity. Like, if you look at this picture, you have these paper mobiles, right? She's taken them off now, but they used to hang.
Yeah, no,
like
I saw
here.
them when I came. Yeah.
And so sometimes I would just be stuck and I'd lie down on the floor and look at the mobiles.
Yeah.
And just look at them turn around, and then somehow, ideas can come back into place. And that's something that's very different from my sort of Cartesian way of working before, or my training. I think as a lawyer, I never lied down on my back in the office.
Ask the heavens, where should I go?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
So it's just this space has given me permission to be weird and to open up to different ways of doing, even if they don't work out and I have to restart.
Yeah.
But that's part of the creative process, and this space has given me, that safety to just explore it and find yourself and your way of creating. And it's always wonderful to have Rachel there as a supporting voice.
Yeah, well, as a kind of who will feed, like, if you get blocked, speak to somebody else who's tapped into that idea of thinking and being creative, and just to help you. And
to see as well, when you look around, there are things that are still in process that aren't finite yet. And so it gives me permission to be cool with my story, not advancing, being stuck, not being as far along as I would want it to be.
That's
so that's
fantastic.
Space. And I think the other thing from this story that from this photo, I mean, is there's a book right there. There's a book on the table. So I was reading that, and it's The Book Thief.
Okay.
By Marcus Zusak. So that was lent to me by Rachel.
Okay.
After she heard my story, she said, you might want to read this. And yes, I mean, it was inspiring as well. So I took some inspiration from there. So again, just that meeting with Rachel opened up so much more resources for me. Right. So I think it's something to be reminded of, that creating needs allies, right? And so Rachel is one ally, but I'd say, my other biggest ally is my husband, right? Because throughout all of this process, he's been super patient and giving me that time to find my voice, because it takes time, to make errors. I've scrapped my whole first draft before. I had to restart, and it has consequences for a couple that I'm not working. Right. But for him to shoulder that, I'm going to start being teary again. It's, it's okay. I feel that emotion. And when you say that to me, you're being supported. He's being supportive. It's like, what I mean? Like, hugely as a supportive. Gift. Right? Yes. And as a gift of love. Yeah. And, he's not in the creative world, right? So some of this thing he might not get it. He's not the type to be lying on the floor and watching mobiles for an hour to find his idea. But he's been so understanding that I have this journey that I need to complete for my own happiness and finding my own meaning in life, that he is going to give me that space and time to find it.
While you have a 1 to 2 to 3 year old child. Yeah,
right?
Look, I agree 1,000%.
And then the other person is, I want to mention her because without her, I wouldn't be able to do this either, is my helper, Jeannabelle, because I think they don't get enough credit for the huge amount of work that they do. And I wouldn't be able to do any of this right now if I didn't have this trust relationship with her, that I know that my son is with her right now.
You know, in a way, let's just say that you're a production house. Okay. And this production house has to put out this product called a finalized novel, a finalized book. But part of your production team includes your husband, who's on top of, let's say, your finance and operations, and you got your helper, who's part of like the back office, like whatever, however you want to create that analogy. As the person who's synthesizing this story to kind of tell the story, and you know, I'm sure anybody who listens to this can hear in your voice that you're kind of seeking healing, but it's like a self-healing, community healing exercise that is clearly a great source of energy and inspiration for yourself. But would you have already given great advice to somebody who's thinking of writing, that get a room of your own, you know, to quote Virginia Woolf. Like, you have to have a room of your own, the space of your own. But what else can you say to kind of give the person the permission to kind of say, you know what, I'm going to go on that path, whatever that path looks like?
I'd say 2 things.
You can say whatever you want, and take as long as you need.
So I think the first thing is you have to start somewhere, right? I think I didn't give myself permission to start for a very long time. And I think maybe I'm a bit of the anxious person who can see too much how things can go wrong, right? And so I delayed. But what I found extremely encouraging and empowering is once you start, you will find A, the resources within yourself, and B, the resources in other people, the allies that you will meet. They will come along the way, right? So just trust it. But I think what can give that impetus to start and to trust your work is what kind of intention do you want to have for your work, right? And that will maintain you throughout, you know, the journey with its ups and downs, especially the downs, because you will be visited by self-doubt. You know, you will be visited by moments when you feel like it's not working, that what you're doing isn't worth it anymore, or that it's not a question of value of what you're doing, but that it's technically not working. You know, the characters aren't coming together, the storyline is just blocked. You know, there will be moments like that. But if your intention is strong, and I think in my case I've had to work on that intention, it has evolved with time, I think, from truth seeking towards more the healing. Once that is strong, then it gives you that drive to continue.
Beautifully said. And
I think the other thing is to continue to have gratitude for everything that you receive from others and just the universe.
Being thankful,
thankful, because that's also a great driving force. I remember when I did theater, every time before I went on stage, I would bring back, you know, everything that I'm grateful for to be here, all the people that I'm grateful for, because it takes the ego away. Yeah. You've already received. You're not doing this to look good or to etc. It's, you know, you're giving back now because you've received so much.
Sure.
And so when you take the ego out of the creating process, somehow I find the work is better.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And so on that, I thank you as well.
So wise.
Because I've been able, through this exercise, I think, to pull the threads of these last few years. As you know, I'm leaving Hong Kong in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So it's been a great way to just look back and see what I've been through, everything I want to bring back with me to Montreal. So I think the universe brought you here for you know, at
Here's
the
what's
best
really great.
time.
And I hope this is something, it's not going to go anywhere as far as these recordings go, but come back to it after a year, and then you'll be able to hear it, listen to it, and say, that's where I was, you know, and you will hear the emotion, and you will hear the awkward pauses. Well, it's not even awkward, just the pauses while you think, and you think, oh God, where you're like, how do I arrange my thoughts in a sequence to communicate what I'm feeling? And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ran.
So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.